Ah, yes, the 2016 Hypebeast streetwear era. Many may even argue this was the golden age of streetwear and sneakers. 2016 was a wild time for streetwear. It felt like every brand was at its peak, collaborations were going crazy, and the sneaker culture was blowing up. But looking back, was 2016 streetwear actually good, or is it just nostalgia? Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive into the 2016 Hypebeast culture, break down the history of it, see what made it so big, and see if any of it still holds up today. So going back to 2016, it was the prime years of flexing on Instagram. Some may even call it the renaissance of streetwear. And people weren't just wearing it, they were making it their entire personality. Every rapper, influencer, or YouTuber that you saw was all wearing Supreme and Bape and trying to show off their massive hauls that they picked up. Think about the prime years of rappers like Lil Pump and influencers like Rice Gum, with every single one of their pictures having some sort of hype and expensive item flexing it. And on top of that, the resale market was going insane. Sneakers were finally getting the recognition they had deserved for years. Now don't get me wrong, sneakers have always had an impact on the culture, but these were the prime years where people were finally getting introduced to the culture who have never been a part of it before. People were camping outside of stores, bots were just coming around at this point, and a lot of pieces, including Supreme, Bape, and even just hype shoes like Yeezys, were selling for 5 to 10x the retail price. And at this time, one of the most influential people within streetwear and fashion was Kanye. He was at the peak of relevance with his Yeezys that just came out with Adidas, and it created an entire new movement of people transitioning from Nike to Adidas. On top of that, Virgil Abloh and his brand Off-White were emerging as the new hype brand, which drew a lot of attention for people who like the more expensive luxury brands. On top of that, some other brands like Antisocial Social Club and Vlone were blowing up. Thanks to the ASAP Mob and ASAP Bari, we don't talk about that. Vlone had become the uniform for every SoundCloud rapper. Do not tell me you don't remember every rapper who's trying to blow up wearing a Vlone hoodie. And at the time, Adidas was the next powerhouse of streetwear. Adidas was completely dominating the game, and for once, Nike wasn't the most popular sneaker brand. 2016 was the year that streetwear had finally became mainstream, but the real question is, was any of the fashion actually good? Starting off with the first piece of the puzzle, which is Supreme. At the time, Supreme was the king of hype for streetwear, and pieces like their box logo hoodies and t-shirts were a holy grail for people who were collecting streetwear. I remember during this time, it was impossible to find a Supreme box logo hoodie for under $600. And they were pumping out so many dope accessories and brand collaborations, including, of course, the Supreme X Louis Vuitton drop. This specific drop was the holy grail of every person who was into streetwear, and the resale prices on these were insane, sometimes being over $10,000 for the hoodie. On top of that, Supreme already had their cult following, attracting a lot of people into skate culture, and then they released even more collaborations, including with Nike on their Air Force Ones and Vans. And although these collaborations were sometimes really basic in design, they've held up really well over time. I'm not gonna lie, Supreme is probably one of the few brands that has actually survived the 2016 Hypebeast era. Most of their pieces hold up really well to this day, and a lot of their collectibles still have value. But I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the accessories were driven by hype. There were so many overpriced weird accessories like bricks and nunchucks and the crowbar, and let's be honest, people only bought those to flex. But it was still such a cool time nonetheless. Today, Supreme doesn't have the hype that it used to, but most of the pieces have held up extremely well, and I could actually see myself wearing a lot of the pieces they put out back in the day in the modern era of streetwear. And with Supreme, we of course have to talk about its biggest competitor, Bape. Now, Bape is the OG Hypebeast brand. The Bape camo hoodies were everywhere at the time, and if you had one of the full zip hoodies that turn you into a shark, that was the ultimate flex. And then Bape had their own shoe as well called the Bapesta, which clearly bit off the Air Force Ones, but these shoes already had a cult following because of Pharrell and Kanye wearing these in the early 2000s. They had so many dope collaborations coming out like the Adidas NMDs, and this was the time that Bape finally got the mainstream success that they deserved. Looking back, Bape did definitely have a specific aesthetic. They had loud branding, overall prints, and bright colors, and definitely kind of reflected like a Y2K style vibe. Obviously, Supreme and Bape were the two biggest brands, and although they're not as popular today as they used to be during the Hypebeast era, and really they just had such a strong and sustainable foundation that they could really never fall off. And then we moved to Virgil Abloh's brand Off-White. Off-White is really interesting because it was fresh to the game, but it already had so much hype built around it because of Virgil. From the industrial belts to the quotation marks all around the branding and the deconstructed sneakers themselves. At the time, the Off-White x Nike collab was just about to release in the next year of 2017, and the hype was building for it. And the craziest part is, although Off-White was a streetwear brand, their prices were luxury prices. Like literally just a hoodie on it with some stripes on the back retailed for crazy high prices. And although Virgil Abloh has unfortunately passed away, Off-White has still held up to the test of time. But a lot of people still associate the brand Off-White to the Hypebeast era. And then we move on to the more short-lived brands like Vlone and Antisocial Social Club. Now Vlone was everywhere at the time, and it was definitely inspired by ASAP Mob and ASAP Bari. If you remember the Friends tee and the Vlone tee with the V on the back, it was everywhere on every single rapper you could think of. Vlone actually had a collab with Nike on the Air Force Ones, and that sneaker is considered a grail to a lot of people. And personally, I never got the Vlone hype, but this brand played a huge role within this era of streetwear and sneakers. But then ASAP Bari happened. ASAP Bari had many controversies that eventually killed the brand, and the brand no longer has mainstream appeal at all to this day. Looking back, Vlone definitely was one of those Hypebeast brands that never really could have stood the test of time. In reality, it was probably just a quick money grab. Those shirts were definitely not worth that price. And if I'm being honest, I've never seen anyone wear a Vlone tee since like 2018. And then of course was probably one of my most favorite times of 2016 fashion, which was the Yeezys that came out with Adidas. This era was prime Yeezy hype. Kanye had just signed a deal with Adidas and they were dominating the sneaker market for the first time. The original V1 of the Adidas Yeezy Boost 350 had just came out the year before, and then the V2s were scheduled to drop late 2016. And to this day, I still have some ancient relics of these shoes. I remember wanting these so bad, and as a kid, I saved up so much money to be able to buy these. Like the Yeezy 750s single-handedly convinced everyone this was a fire shoe. And I'm not gonna lie, I bought into the hype, but I still really love this shoe. The culture behind the original 350s and 750s was just incredible. People were paying stupid money to get their hands on these. Comfort-wise, they were probably some of the best shoes on the market with the new Boost technology that just came out. Do y'all remember when everyone was wearing fakes of these? The Yeezys single-handedly created an entire fake sneaker culture as well. Design-wise, in my mind, they still hold up to this day. Tell me what you guys think. Now, Yeezys have definitely slowed down in hype throughout the last few years, especially with Kanye now leaving Adidas and starting his own independent brand. It seemed like over the years, Yeezy and Adidas just got kind of lazy with their designs they were putting out. It just didn't seem as intentional. But I will still always love the OG Yeezys. Were they actually good, or was it just marketing? Just like the Adidas Yeezys, the Adidas Ultra Boosts were incredibly hype at this time as well. These shoes were everywhere in 2016, and they also had the Boost technology that was introduced by Adidas. They were marketed as the most comfortable shoe ever that you couldn't take off your feet. I'm not gonna lie, I bought into the hype. I think to this day, I still have like 10 pairs of them. But what really made the Adidas Ultra Boost go insane was Kanye wearing them at his Life of Pablo tour, rocking the triple white 1.0 Ultra Boost. And one thing that I absolutely loved about these sneakers is that they're a Hypebeast shoe. You could wear them for style, but they were also extremely comfortable. And at the time, in my mind, they were the perfect hype, but also really wearable shoe. Not to mention also the Adidas NMDs. These were huge, especially with the collabs with Bape, like I mentioned before, even the Pharrell Human Races. Comparing the Ultra Boost and NMDs to something like Jordans and Yeezys, no one really rocks these as much anymore. A lot of times, if I ever wear my pairs, it's just to run on a hike or maybe just to work out. But if we're being completely honest, the hype died down, but they still are a great shoe. And if we're talking about Adidas, we have to talk about their biggest competitor, which was Nike, and specifically Jordan Brand. 2016 was an incredible year for Jordan Brand, and they released a lot of classic colorways. We had the Bread 1s, the Air Jordan 4 White Cements, and even the Space Jam 11s. At this time, Jordan Brand had already had that sustainable hype, and a lot of their shoes weren't necessarily Hypebeasts, unless some one-off collaborations like the Supreme and Jordan 5 collab. Jordan Brand always has been sustainable and performed well, but at this time, Adidas was kind of taking over the market. But it was now the time for the golden age of the Air Jordan 1. This was before the crazy hype of the 2020 Air Jordan 1s that had came out. People were starting to catch on to the hype of the Jordan 1, and it was slowly becoming one of the most popular retros at the time. And let's not forget to mention the crazy colorways of the Jordan 1 that are still classic to this day, like the shattered backboard Jordan 1s. The crazy part is, a lot of these old pairs still hold incredible value to this day and are still hype, which means that Jordan Brand has always had that strong base of fans who will be ride or die and ride with them no matter what the next hype thing is. A lot of what made the culture at the time was the flex. Everyone wanted to have the most expensive pieces, and style was more correlated to money and status than actually having your own personality. At the time, the more exclusive a sneaker was, people thought you had better style. But if we're being honest, looking retrospectively, a lot of the fashion was hit or miss. Some of the pieces were genuinely really good quality and looked really cool, while others were obviously just driven by the hype. Today, streetwear has moved away from a lot of the loud, over-branding hype stuff, being more style-driven with a lot more focus on minimalism and the actual quality of the fabric and design itself. And looking back, some of the brands did age really well. Off-White, Supreme, and Jordan Retros are still popular to this day, but others have completely fell off the face of the earth, like Vlone, Antisocial Social Club. There's probably many more that I didn't name in this video. And the resale market was a lot different today than it used to be. At the time, bots were first making their emergence in the market, and everything was selling for stupid high prices. But now only specific pieces and hype collaborations really have that resale value. Looking back, a lot of this era was not timeless, but it was really fun. There was just something really fun about it. And if you were into streetwear at this time, you know that this was peak streetwear. It's known for the era of exclusive shoes and flexing the most insane price clothes. Although not a lot of it has held up well, and let's be honest, probably a lot of this is my nostalgia talking. At the same time, this era is what shaped streetwear to be what it is today. So even if you don't think it was a great time for fashion, it was still important. Was this era of streetwear actually good, or was it just the hype?
You can call us Hypebeasts, you can call us lames, you can call us fuckboys, you can call us all type of shit, but you know what you cannot call me? You cannot call me broke. My condo $4,200 a month, and I'm sitting there with my feet up watching projector screen movies with your bitch. How you love that?
And if you feel like this video brought any value to you, feel free to subscribe too. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.